Now I'd like to introduce Dan Rousseau, scratch building and O scale, modeling antique window glass.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to actually join you guys. I don't get the opportunity as often as I would like to. This happens to hit on Wednesday night when I'm usually at church. So taking a break from that and coming to spend some time with you guys is a real treat. So, as an ON30 modeler, I've been doing that now for, gosh, 20 plus years, I guess. Have been in a modeler for going on 50 plus years, did a lot of HO modeling for years, had a brief stint in SN3 until Bachmann showed up with the ON30 Shea, and that was the death knell of all other scales for me. Once that showed up, it was time to jump in with both feet, and I've been ON30 ever since. But one of the things that's been interesting in doing, whether scratch building or doing kits or whatever, is I found that most of us model eras that predate manufactured glass, right? Yet kits are the typical stuff that's available, whether you're using, slide glass or whether you're using acetate or whatever feature you might be using for your window glass, really doesn't replicate hand blown glass, which is the way glass was manufactured or made in the era that most of us model. So that led me to looking for what could I find that would really replicate that look. And so if we can go to the next slide, this is sort of the tool set that I work with. Some toothpicks, pretty simple, your windows and doors and things like that. The micro crystal clear is the product I use. So this is a product that you can find. It's a micro scale product. You can find it if you have a hobby shop. If not, you can certainly get it online. Has the consistency when you look at it almost like Elmer's glue in the bottle. And then I happen to have this pair of hands that I find really handy to put the windows in and allow them to dry level. So you'll see some of that as we go forward, and go to the next slide. Here are some other tools that you can combine with microcrystal clear. Really any of your craft paints. So if you want to create a stained glass panel, right? We've all seen, and you'll see in this exhibition, we've seen those doors where they've got the clear story windows above the door, and those are sometimes stained glass. They're usually a single color. Well, you can take a little bit of pigment and mix it with the crystal clear, and when it dries, you end up with a colored glass pane. Now, for your sanity, I would highly recommend you don't try to create a rose window for your cathedral out of this, because you'll go absolutely insane doing it. But for simple colored glass applications, it works. We can go to the next slide. So you're taking product on the end of your toothpick. I picked this multi-pane window as a starting point because it's one of the easier ones when you start out to really work this technique. So we can go to the next slide. And what you're doing is, unlike what the manufacturer tells you to do, instead of swirling that stuff around the inside of the pane and creating a bubble, what I do is flip the window over and attack it from the rear, and essentially dip my toothpick in the material, and then you can progress to the next slide. You'll see that what I start to do is roll that toothpick across the back of the window frame, and it essentially fills in each of those panes. And once I've got that done, then it's time to basically put it in the hands device and or someplace where I can keep it level so that it can dry. And it usually dries in, probably 20 to 30 minutes. So you can just keep, if you've got a bunch of windows to do, you just keep kind of rolling through them. The key there is having a level space that you can let these dry and not have anything touching the surface of those panes. But you can get the idea of now seeing the finished result, that it looks like antique glass, right? It looks like glass panes that were hand blown back in the day in how they used to make glass. And that was really my objective to start out with. I wanted that look. The other beautiful thing about antique window panes like this is you can put window treatments behind them. You can see through them, but it's not so clear that you have to. One of the advantages of doing it this way is you can gain the advantage of giving your structure depth of field in the windows and doorways without modeling the complete interior, right? Just because of the fact that it's opaque enough that you can't see everything clearly, right, on the inside of the structure. So if you're modeling something and you just don't really want to go to the nth degree of modeling the interior out, this is a great technique. I also use this on hydrocal structures. If you've done any of the downtown deco buildings, and they have the window openings that are basically cast into the hydrocal casting. What I do is I take that back area and paint it black or some dark color, do my windows and any window treatment, and it gives you that depth of field that you want without doing a whole lot. And you don't have to punch out the window spaces and file all of that stuff and create an unholy mess everywhere. So it's another way to kind of avoid some extra work, yet give you a great looking, window. So we can move on to the next. So in this one, we're picking a much larger window opening. And so what I recommend is, as you get with a larger window opening, is to start out by dipping your toothpick into the product and just kind of going around the inside of the mullions, right? And so you'll see as we progress this, what this looks like. You can go ahead to the next slide and the next one. And so you've basically put some product around there to give the microcrystal clear something to hold on to when you start to roll the toothpick across the back of the window. And so that's what you're seeing here, is how it's filling in and grabbing that product that you've already put around the inside of the window. So you can already see it's starting to clear up and dry. And there's another photo. There it is in the drying process. And then there's your final window product, if you will. So we can go on to the next. This is a door, window on a door, done the same way. And you can see the final product. And this is fitting into a typical Tichy door frame that's got the clear story windows. And so we'll go to the next series of slides. This is picking 3 colors, and mixing a little bit of pigment in with your product. You can go ahead and creating those colored window panes. And then finally, the last one shows you sort of the finished product. And this would be obviously weathered and things like that, which I did not do on this, but it gives you a sense of what the door can look like, and you can change up the colors to suit your needs. And then we've got some pictures. These are windows that I've done on various structures. This happens to be a laser cut kit. So this works just as well on laser cut windows as it does on, the plastic windows, Grant Line and things like that. So you can see in the one, if you go back to the one photo on the left, you can see some of the interior bracing detail inside, the head house through the pane. So, you've got some visibility into the interior, but not a ton in terms of high level of detail. So it kind of works to your advantage. Okay, going to the next. So the structure on the left was a Penzi prototype interlocking tower I did for a friend of mine, utilizing the same techniques, putting window shades behind it. And this sits on his railroad. Coincidentally, I'm going to be building 2 more of those for him. But and then the one on the right is a old, like, Thomas York hydrocal structure that happened to come with a coal yard facility. It didn't say coal yard to me, it said state bank, so I created a state bank out of it. But these were the largest windows I've ever done utilizing this technique. These are very, very large window openings, but it took a couple of passes to pull it off. But this is really where I learned to utilize the technique of putting some of the material around the inside of the window to grab onto. So any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Yes. Quick question. We have how transparent are those colored windows?
So, if you've got light behind them, you're going to see some, transparency to them. And a lot of the transparency is going to be dependent upon how much pigment you use. So if you want really transparent, just use less pigment in the mix, right? Mm-hmm. If you want them to be more opaque, if they wanted to be really, really a dark color pane, and they weren't going to really show much light through them, then add a little bit more pigment to them.
Well, what I'm looking for is something to use for making signal lenses.
You could use that for signal lenses. Yeah. You would want to experiment, probably starting with as little pigment as you can to begin with, and just working with it, and then see what your results are. And you'll get to a happy medium pretty quickly.
No, I've not used microcrystal clear, but I've used other materials.
With this, a lot of guys use canopy glue, some other things.
Yeah, how brittle is this? Can it pant? After it dries, can you touch it and not break it?
You can touch it and not break it. It will flex a little bit, because of the nature of the membrane. I wouldn't recommend poking it.
No. I had some that were so brittle that you just look at them.
It's one of those things that look, you're going to find that when you use this material for your windows, on occasion you're going to get little bubbles in the window. Well, guess what? Real glass, blown glass, had bubbles in it, right? So it's one of those. Just treat it as a happy accident when it happens, right? And don't worry about it. But good question.
Hey, Dan, if you wanted to make something that looked like a frosted glass, could you just mix a little white in, or would you do something like with acetate, where you just spray it with dull coat or something?
Well, you could do either of those. Your other option, quite easily, is just take after it's cured, just take a brush and with water and lightly wash across the back of it, and trust me, that will kind of haze it. So
that's easy.
That's another way I've found to do it. But yeah, you could do either.
All right,
either would work. Yep.
I was
Hey,
wondering,
Dan.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
wondering
for
if you-
a transparent color, I achieved great success using the gel food colorings.
Yes, that would also work. Yeah. Good suggestion. Thank you.
I was wondering if you're able to model broken glass with this technique.
You know, I haven't tried it, but I don't see why you couldn't, because you can cut that membrane, right? So yeah, I would think you could probably take a really sharp hobby knife, and if you laid that window down on the workbench, you could probably cut, you know, jagged pieces and make it look broken. It would be an interesting experiment. I haven't done it.
Pretty flexible material. It probably have to age for a while before it got good and hard before you
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah. I haven't tried that one, but that's an interesting thought.
Dan, does this only work with craft paints, or can you use Tamiya?
I haven't tried it with Tamiya. You'd have to experiment with it. I've only used the craft paints in terms of pigment with the product. I
The
don't
reason
see.
I ask is Tamiya has some crystal clear red, green, and such paints, and I was wondering if you had tried it.
No, I haven't. But give it a whirl. I mean, you could try it on just any window that you have and experiment and see if it does, and then let us know.
Dan, Steve Sherrill, how you doing?
Good.
How about steam engine headlights?
Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't use this for a steam engine headlight.
I mean, they have a deeper cavity usually, so you'd have to fill those up, I would think.
Well, actually, you wouldn't, because if you think about it, if you take the headlight cavity, right,
Mm-hmm.
and just that inside that edge, if you put a little bit of product on the inside of that edge, and then did your rolled the material across the face of it,
Mm-hmm.
it should fill that thinly without filling the entire cavity, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see why, you know, I mean, theoretically, you could even use this for, you know, window glass on locomotives and things like that. I haven't done that, but, you know, I've just predominantly used this on structures because, like I said, I wanted something that looked age appropriate, if we can use that term, to, you know, to the era. So,
Dan, I used your technique on repairing a fake Tiffany lamp, you know, on a desk lamp. It works
Wow.
great for all sorts of reasons.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like I said, I wouldn't step off and try to do a, you know, rose window on your Catholic cathedral on your layout or anything. But, you know, you can play around with, you know.
You muted yourself.
This is Jeff Jordan. Just to mention the using it for locomotive windows. It works great for steam locomotive windows, which are small panes and you can fill using the same technique. And of course, the window on a steam locomotive is usually filthy, not clear. So it works great to glaze the windows on steam locomotives. I also, working in ON30, and I saw the back head on these locomotives with nice big gauges. You put a dot of this stuff on the face of the gauge, and now you've got glass on the face of your gauges too.
Yep.
Dan, one of the other things, Dan, that that method works very well on is I build a lot of Jordan models, and I use it for all my windows and all my lenses in my headlights.
Yep.
It's a beautiful product.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's amazing. It's been out there for years, and yet a lot of modelers, you know, they'll see me because I'll do it. Tom knows this. I do this. So does Steve. I come to the Harrisburg show, and I'll just sit there and build stuff and share tips and tricks and techniques and things like that. Tom does the same thing on the scratch building side, and it's amazing to me the number of modelers that really don't know this product, right? Haven't tried it. And it's a very simple product. and you get some great results with it.